Hi everyone. So as I said, I am going to go through my journey of 7 years sobriety and hope that it resonates with someone, or for anyone who wants to know my journey. They're either nosy, or I don't mind you being nosy, by the way, because there's people close to me who never knew I had a problem or never guessed I had a problem, and part of that is because there's still a massive stigma around what an alcoholic looks like. An alcoholic to most people still is the old man, the tramp in the street who's in the gutter with a brown paper bag and a bottle, who doesn't have a home, who doesn't have a family, or if he does, he doesn't speak to them, or they don't speak to him. They don't see it as a working class person who has a house, who has a job, who has clean clothes, who has a family, who has teeth, who has a respectable job, who is maybe somebody famous, who is your run-of-the-mill normal person. It could be your next door neighbour, it could be someone in your family who you are in denial with, or they are in denial themselves. It could be your child, it could be your parent, it could be anybody. I can't remember the specific stat, but I think it's 1 in 4 or something like that is an alcoholic in every one of us. The person who said to me, "I would never have known you were an alcoholic," was actually someone who worked in a bar. And I drank in their bar and they still had no idea that I was an alcoholic. So it just shows you how alcoholics work, in the sense that it is a disease that you can hide very, very well, in the sense that you can trick people into thinking that you do not have a problem. And I did it extremely well. And you hear the term functioning alcoholic, and that basically means that you function very, very well. You hold down a job, you, to the outside world, put on this persona that everything is fine. So especially on a Sunday, my house would be absolutely sparkling, gleaming. The housework would be completely up to date. There would be something ready to go eaten, like a Sunday dinner of sorts, like chicken on the go, or like fajitas, or just something like homely and stuff like that. Everything would be sorted for school the next day. Everything done, dusted, you name it, everything's done on a Sunday, right? Ready for me, sitting down, ready to open a bottle of wine at like 3 o'clock. Like, that was just religion. And that was the first bottle getting opened, and then the second bottle, possibly a third, on a Sunday. But going back to the very start, I think I was conscious of my drinking probably when I moved into my house. And it was a big thing for me moving into my own house, because in every soap opera that you watch, every drama series that you watch, every American show that you watch, everything you watch basically on the TV, the first thing they do when they go home is they pour a glass of wine, or they go to the Wool Pack, or they go to the pub. I can't remember what the pub is in Coronation Street, that's terrible, it's been that long since I watched it. Or they go to like the pub in Albert Square or whatever, right? Everything is set around the pub, right? Or they go home and have a drink. Scandal, Olivia Pope, prime example, red wine constantly, right? She's a functioning alcoholic. Don't care what anybody says, she is a functioning alcoholic. So for me, when I had my own house, it was like, oh, I can always have a bottle of wine in the fridge, like that's just what you do. And then there's the mum thing, like mum drinking is a thing, like mum and wine in society is a thing, right? Mum and wine are two words that in society go together. It's a thing. Look at all the birthday cards that are out there, it's not even birthday cards now, it's any card, right? All social events are mums and drinking, t-shirts, like jumpers, like you name it, right? And there's mums that are on social media who have their Instagram handle as something like drinking mum or whatever. They've built a reputation on that or whatever, right? That's and like that's them and that's what they do and all the rest of it. But mums and wine go hand in hand, right? That's how society deem us. If that was dads and beer go together as well, right? That's just how the world works, right? So mums and wine, right? So for me that was normal. I would go home and I would have a bottle of wine when you go home because that's just what you do. And then me and Neve's dad split up and Neve went to her dad's every Wednesday, every second weekend. So I was like, right, okay, I'm bored, what do I do? Just sit and drink. And I sat and I drank in the house myself. And I always remember sitting in the house drinking myself, even when I was young, 17, 18. And it was, I always remember my mum's coming in and looking for a red cap in the bedroom, which was a bottle of vodka. 17, 18, sitting in the house drinking yourself, playing Crash Bandicoot. I mean, that was like Thursday night, working the next day, Friday night, a Saturday. Sometimes I would end up like going out after like having a few drinks in the house or whatever, but that's not normal behaviour. Even then, that wasn't normal behaviour. I moved into my own house when I had Neve and I was 26. So when me and Neve's dad split up, I was drinking more heavily on a Wednesday, and every second weekend on a Wednesday I would go to my cousins. That was pure carnage. And every second weekend, and that was carnage. And even now I still get triggers from drinking heavily at daytime. So like the tune from Dexter triggers me because I used to put that on to fall asleep to. I've always got something on in the background to fall asleep to, a television programme or whatever. Dexter is one of them. The theme tune to that always takes me back to my heavy drinking days. A certain alarm on an iPhone, like you know how you can change the alarms, there's a certain alarm on a phone, so if somebody, it goes off in the vicinity of me, it triggers me, because that used to be my alarm to get me up in the morning at that time. It triggers me, it takes me back, it takes my breath away. Certain songs from the periods and things like that, it triggers me as well. But that wasn't the bad bit of my drinking, it got worse after that. What then happened is I got into a relationship with someone who was a heavy drinker. Didn't know he was a heavy drinker then, but he was a heavy drinker, and I then went on to gin, and he lived in a different part of the city, so on a Wednesday and every second weekend I basically moved over there, and he worked really hard, so I, while waiting for him to come in from work, would literally go to his, and I would just obviously wait for him coming in. But what I would do is I would buy a bottle of gin, go in, not even take my coat off, pour the gin, put the tunes on, pour the gin, have a dance to the first song that came on, then take my coat off, and then I would like just potter about and do what had to be done, like the normal stuff that you would usually do in the house. Because he worked all the time, so on the Wednesday and the weekends, like I would do everything in the house kind of thing. That was just how it worked. But when he came in, he would just say, right, just get me in the pub. So that was great. So I was like, right, okay, the pub was literally down the stairs and round the corner. We would go down, that was us to shutting, come back up, went to work the next day. So they always knew, even in the work, they always knew like a Thursday was probably a write-off for me, and then every second weekend, like we were always in the pub basically. So we would get up, we would maybe go for lunch, and then we would just go straight to the pub. And then because the two of us were heavy drinkers, it got out of control, and I knew I was drinking and drinking and drinking, and it was getting worse and worse and worse, and it was obviously just a disaster waiting to happen. I got more controlling, I got more jealous, and that was the way I was all through my relationships. I was controlling, I was jealous, I was angry, I was, as my mum said, I didn't go into relationships, I took hostages. And I don't ever know what that was about. I just always was needing affection and things like that. I am one of the most self-conscious people I know, if you know what I mean. Like, and other people who get to know me understand that, and they go, but that's not the way you come across. Like, you come across, even therapists say that. Like, I've been in therapy probably 20 years because of my self-consciousness and anxiety and depression and things like that. And they say, everybody says the same thing. They're like, you put this mask on that you are the most confident person ever. Like, you'll walk in to a room like very, very straight and very commanding and things like that, and you are nothing like that. You are really quite shy, you are really quite withdrawn, and you're introverted, but you come across as very extroverted and loud, and I'm like, yeah, when I was drunk I was like that. I was extremely loud, I was over the top, and I didn't like that. I didn't like that about me, but I had to do that to either fit in or stand out, because the people that I was with were either like that, or they were obviously, they were a lot prettier than me. I was always like the ugly duckling at the back, so I had to be the funny one, if you know what I mean. And funny, I pushed to stupidity, and I didn't particularly like doing some of the stuff that I did. But you're drunk, you do it, and then you regret it, kind of thing. And I did a lot of that in my 20s and things like that. I did a lot of things I really didn't want to do to stand out. I did a lot of things I shouldn't have done to stand out, to be noticed, to just be seen. But when you're self-conscious, instead of being in the shadows, and you're full of bravado and all that with the drink, and you just do it because the drink tells you so. You've got this devil on your shoulder telling you, it's fine, and it's really not fine at all in any sense of the word. But going back to that, when the relationship broke down, as clear as day, remember it, I got in a taxi. I don't know for the life of me why I had the keys to the house that I was selling. Get in a taxi, asked the taxi driver to take me to the house that I was selling, which was over the Erskine Bridge. Asked the taxi driver to stop on the Erskine Bridge. He refused, rightly so. He was obviously very worried about me, wanted to take me to the police station, said no. He was in a complete quandary, didn't know what to do. Obviously knew I wanted off the bridge because I was going to jump. And he let me obviously get out the taxi, made sure I got in the house. I have no idea what was going through that taxi driver said, and they must see things like that a lot, but I remember clear as day. I went into the house, I phoned Neve's gran, so Neve's dad's mum, and no, I didn't. I phoned Neve's dad, and Neve was with him at the time, and said, obviously, I was in a bad place, that Neve was better off without me, that he already knew that I had postnatal depression, but obviously I had come through that and things like that, but things in my head weren't good, and I was struggling, that I didn't think I was a good mum, blah blah blah. I was pacing the living room, I always remember that. I was pacing the living room and I didn't know what to do. I was shaking, I was having a panic attack. I knew everything that was happening to me, because I had a breakdown like that a few years before, and I always remember him like just panicking, and he's like, where are you? And I told him where I was, and he was like, I don't know what you want me to do, like, are you there yourself, blah blah blah, and I was like, yeah, and he's like, just go to your mum and dad's and blah blah blah, and I said no, and then we hung up, and then his mum phoned me. He was staying at his mum's. His mum phoned me and she persuaded me to go to my bed, and I was to go to my mum and dad's in the morning, and if I didn't, she was going to come and get me and take me there, basically. So I went to my mum and dad's. I told them I needed help. They took me to the doctor straight away, and she basically phoned the priory and said, expect Shona, and away we went. So we went, and they obviously took me in and seen a psychiatrist, and they said I was suicidal. I was severely depressed with suicidal tendencies, and obviously could have been admitted, blah 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 blah. And obviously they give you the cost and things like that, and well, that's not an option, but this is what we'll do. So they put the emergency plan in place, etc etc etc, and we did it. We did like private counselling and all that separately, and resorted my meds and things like that, and obviously I got better, but getting better didn't mean I didn't stop drinking. You would think at that point I would have stopped drinking, but I didn't. I cut back, but I didn't stop. So, I mean, how low do you need to get to stop? You would think that would have been probably the lowest, wouldn't you? I don't remember much after that, and that's probably to do with the meds and the fact that I still drank. But obviously I got better, and then I just remember keep drinking, and then I moved back into the house again. Like, I managed the way mortgage stuff worked in the market and things like that. I moved back in, and then with work it was a case of where I lived I could always get the bus straight home kind of thing, and where the bus stop was, there was a Wetherspoons, and it was like, I'll just jump in for one, and then before you jump in for one you're jumping in for a bottle. And then I was always late picking Eve up, and then going on holiday I would get drunk at the airport and be an embarrassment to Eve, basically. Going on holiday, but I wouldn't drink on holiday. Like, I would have one drink out the fortnight or whatever, but she would say, Mum, like, no, and I'd be like, it's just a laugh, Eve, blah blah blah. But then coming up to like the 7 years, like when I decided to stop, it had been getting out of control for about a year and a half, and I was with someone, and he was a I wouldn't say he was a bit of a drinker, but the two of us didn't work well together, and I could feel myself drinking more and more, but not because I enjoyed it, but to escape. And the escape put me in a bad place, and it was a bad place that I knew I was going back down when I was going to jump off that bridge before. But it wasn't just me I had to obviously contend with. I knew Neve wasn't happy, and as Neve was getting older, I then was like, I need to do something because I can't go down that road. That wasn't the road I was going down, but I had asked a few times, like, go, and it just fell in deaf ears, and I was like, he's no listening, and he's just no listening. How's he no listening? And I didn't feel strong enough, like, to go, if you know what I mean, like, go. And there was another kid in the mix, and I was like, this isn't good for anybody, kind of thing. But I was broken. I was done. I knew there was nothing left of me. There was nothing of me left. I looked at me in the mirror and went, I don't know who I am anymore. I felt this person had taken everything away from me, and it's not necessarily all their fault because I had allowed it, and even if they weren't there, maybe I would have still lost myself to drink. I don't know, but I just remember feeling that there was nothing left of me. So if you've read my post, you'll have seen that I planned that was my last drink, and I cried into that last drink because I knew that was my last drink. And I woke up the next morning, I I felt like shit. I was hungover, I cried, because I knew I was going to feel like that for a few days. He didn't believe that was my last drink. He was like, alright, okay. And I didn't really tell anybody that was my last drink. And 4 months, so from the May to the August, I just put my head down and just got on with it. And it wasn't easy, it was hard, it was difficult. I took up knitting, I still ate, and I'll post some pictures like so you can see what I looked like in my last drink. And I looked at them the other day and I just don't look like the same person. And I remember looking at myself that day and not recognising, like on that day, looking in the mirror and not recognising who I was. But I got to the August and I was like, no, I think I need a bit of support now. And I went to AA, and the guy opened his mouth to do the first share, and I just broke down crying, and I cried all the way through it. And they always say find the similarities, not the differences, and his story was very similar to mine. And it was an early in sobriety meeting, and I just cried the whole time. And there was a girl there with me, and she just held my hand the whole way. And I just knew I was in the right place. And these places are really, really magical. And these places are just full of people who are like-minded and have experienced things like you and understand where you're coming from and understand how you feel, because unless you know how you feel, nobody else understands it. And I know that makes no sense, but if you're listening to this and you're finding the similarities, you'll know what I mean. But you get to a point, you need to stop, and you need to stop for you. I could say I stopped for Neve, that would be a lie. I stopped for me. If I stopped for Neve, I probably wouldn't have stopped and not relapsed, if you know what I mean. Like, you need to stop for yourself. You could stop for other people, but it doesn't have the same meaning. Like, you would be using them as an excuse to stop. You need to stop for you, because you'd be lying to yourself if you say you're going to stop for somebody else. Nobody else matters in recovery. Everybody else is affected, and that's a good thing. But in recovery, it's only you that matters. So, and that's where you need to be selfish. So, see if someone plays that card, you need to pick it's you or the drugs or whatever, right? Right, that's, it shouldn't be about that. It's, obviously you love them and none of the rest of it, right? You would obviously pick the loved one or whatever, right? But to actually stop, you need to do it for you. Do you know what I mean? That's a horrible ultimatum to give somebody, but to really stop, you need to do it for you. And there's hundreds of support out there. You've got A, you've got GA, you've got CA, you've got NA, you've got, I don't know, you've got them all. But Instagram, massive community out there supporting you. You've got people. See if you DM'd anybody who said they were willing to help you, they'll help you. honest to God, they will help you. Anybody in recovery who's putting themselves out there will help you. Honestly, there must be so many women out there who are keeping up this bravado of, oh, I just like a glass of wine every night and it's not affecting me, blah blah blah, when it is. And you're not saying anything because all your pals will think something. Pals can think whatever they like. If you think it's affecting you in a negative way, wrap it. If it's affecting you in a negative way, if it's affecting your actions, if you're waking up in the morning, you've spent money you've not got, if it's affecting your mood, if it's affecting the way you're treating your family, treating your children, if it's just not agreeing with you, if you can't handle the hangovers, anything like that, just don't do it. We're in a culture now where it's socially acceptable not to drink. There's restaurants, pubs, everything are doing non-alcoholic stuff. The culture's changing. And if anybody's got a problem with it, it's their problem. It's no yours. If I can do it, like, nobody in the world thought I could stop drinking. I'm 7 years. I'm lucky I've not relapsed, and there's many a times in my 7 years that I could have, but I didn't, because I know what I've got. I know what I would lose if I did. I'm not saying it's easy. It's really not. But honestly, it's the best thing. Like, I would never drive. I never took a lesson when I was drinking because I knew I would get behind the wheel of a motor. And I would never have done, like, I would never do that. So I waited until I stopped drinking. That was one of my goals. I'll stop drinking and then I'll learn to drive, because I can trust myself then. How mad's that? Putting something like that off. Just don't think about what you'll lose, think about what you'll gain. The amount of things that I've lost, like with Eve, time I've lost with her, and I've made all that back up and more, but I look back and I think I was silly there, because I'm never getting the years back. I can make up for them, but I'm never going to make up. I'm never going to get them back. Do you know what I mean? And she was too wee and too frightened to say anything. It was my mum that told me what she was thinking. But I'd talk back to my mum. I would never have dared talk back to Neve if she had said to me herself. And had Neve said to me herself, it might have been a different story. But if your kids are telling you, you need to listen to them. So, but I hope that helps somebody, or I hope that gives you a little insight into what my journey's like. But if anybody wants to talk, anybody wants any information or anything, I'm here. Here to listen, here to talk, here to do whatever. Come to a meeting with you, whatever. But I hope that's been helpful. But yeah, thanks. Bye.